Alright, welcome back everyone. So in today's episode we're going to be taking a look at the show known as Dragon's Den, and we'll be applying what I consider to be some of the key points from the show and how that can help everyday investors out there when selecting new companies to invest in. And so for those unaware, Dragon's Den is a show that allows companies to present their product to receive more investment, and in turn they give away a certain amount of equity. And so one or more of the dragons are able to invest into the product. For the company that's presenting their idea, their goal at the end of it all is to receive a set amount of money, for instance £200,000, and then in return they give, generally speaking, from 5 to 30% of their company, and then they walk away with an expert that can help catapult their business idea. And so during this process there's key pieces of information that the company provides to the potential investors, but what I want to hone in on is the actual questions that the dragons ask when questioning how the company has been performing to date. And so the first point that always comes up on the show is, what is the product target market? And so when we invest in different companies, we should also be looking at a similar type of question. For instance, take a look at Apple. We have to ask ourselves, what is their target market and what is their potential to scale even more? Now, the one difference with all these points that I am making is that we are looking at well-established companies that are obviously listed on the stock exchange. With the likes of Dragon's Den, they are looking at companies that are more early stage, and so attached to that is a lot of high risk. But the similar principles still apply with the likes of Apple or other companies that we invest in. And so with the likes of Apple, we have to ask ourselves what type of products are on sale. Perhaps the MacBook Pro is their best seller, or perhaps it's their iPhone that's still the best seller. These are types of questions we have to ask ourselves. And so at a high level, we just have to understand what the company is producing. It's not always going to be a product-based company, but it could also be service-based. But we have to get a sense of how scalable the business is. The next point that is always mentioned on the show is how investable the actual person is. Now, of course, not every deal happens even though the individual is investable, but when you have someone that understands the market that they're putting themselves into and their ability to communicate and make sensible decisions for the company, we should also be doing the same thing as well when we invest into different companies. Now, one way of looking at that is to see who is the current CEO. For instance, Derwent London, we've got Paul Williams as the CEO. But more importantly is the actual structure of the company. Actually understanding how well the business model works holds much more weight when it comes to established companies out there, rather than who is the actual front-facing CEO or CTO. And so switching back to the show, the key question on any investment choice is a drill down into the different metrics and figures of the company. And so on the show, they are looking for gross profit, and they're actually more interested in the likes of gross profit, given that they want to understand how the business is performing in terms of the cash, rather than if any money has been pulled out. They really want to understand how the business is performing, because that tells you how profitable the company currently is and how profitable it can be in the future. And so whenever I perform my own analysis, I'm always looking at the likes of revenue, but most importantly, net income. We can actually drill down even further. We have all different metrics on the screen, but we can see we've even got gross profit as well. And so an understanding on past performance, how the company has been operating, seeing if there's any growth potential within the company. That gives us the confidence to project the type of trajectory that the company is on and the performance that we will see in the future, and therefore answer the question of whether this company is investable or not. And so there's two more points to cover. Switching back to Dragon's Den, with the likes of Deborah, for instance, she's always asking about whether a company has a patent. If it's patent pending, then she'll generally pull out of the deal. But more broadly, what this means is that she's asking whether the company has a level of protection or an advantage over any other competitors out there. And this is actually no different for well-established companies out there. Again, going back to the likes of Apple, what we're asking here is how big is their moat? Of course, patents can be one aspect, especially in the tech space, but there's other factors that could attribute to having a larger moat. One example is how many subscribers does the company have? Now, obviously, Apple is very big. They've got subscribers in the form of music. You could even look at subscription as a metric in terms of how often they trade in their physical products to then buy the next latest version. But having an understanding of whether the company is a leader in their space or whether there's competition very close by is a great indicator on whether a company is a sensible investment choice or not. And then the final point to make, and I'm referencing the latest dragon on board, which is Stephen Bartlett. For anyone who hasn't seen his YouTube channel, A Diary of a CEO, it's great content, highly recommend it. But one of the key points he makes on the majority of his pitches is how well to position a product and use social media as an advantage to grow the sales. And so similarly with our investment choices, depending on the type of company out there, we want to get a sense of how well perceived the company is within the social space. So Apple, for instance, doesn't really need to promote that much, but twice a year they'll have their WWDC conferences, and that allows the company to stay relevant and allow different social outlets to talk about their latest products. If we look at the likes of, say, the Land Securities Group, most people haven't heard of this company. They are a holding company, so they really wouldn't need to do any form of promotion. Their investments are tied into different commercial properties, and so it wouldn't make sense to burn a lot of cash to try and grow social awareness for a holding company. But for companies where it does make sense, let's say for instance Microsoft or that of Nintendo, it's important to understand how the company is staying relevant if that determines how many sales they make for the given product that they are selling. And so a different video to what I normally produce, fundamentally looking at how we can improve our investment mindset going forwards. If you enjoyed this video, definitely hit that thumbs up. Subscribe if you are new around here. I post new videos every week. For all the current subscribers out there, really appreciate your ongoing support. And with that said, I'll catch you in the next one.
Staring out the window, reaching for a North Star, waiting just to wake up from this nightmare where you could be right back in my arms, dancing to the limbo, stuck here in the middle. You tell me that it's simple, but I could paint 1,000 different pictures of what is